Heirs to Outdoors is now partnered with PodHub Network, your local source of podcasts in the Pittsburgh regional area. As predator hunting becomes more popular throughout Pennsylvania, the Heirs crew will delve into the nature of hunting coyotes and the dangers they pose to wildlife in populated areas. This is Nolan Duncan along with Brian McLaughlin and Jim Kelly. Welcome to Heirs Podcast. So recently, Brian, we've done some research with coyotes. We love to hunt during the off season explicitly because in Pennsylvania, you can hunt them virtually any time of the year. We noticed just recently, though, about 3 days ago in Alaska, there's this mutant coyote weighing around at 60 pounds. Is that pretty average in your opinion, or is that pretty much above average?
Well, no. From all accounts that I've seen, and Jim could probably agree or disagree with me, I think females go from around 35 to 40 pounds adult size on average. I think males can get up to 50 pounds. And that's an eastern coyote. I know that they're mixed. They have some like small genes of wolf in them, but it doesn't mean they're coy wolves. It just means that they have a different genetic makeup than the ones out west. But I would say, Jim, I don't know if you want to agree with me that the biggest coyote that I've ever killed was around maybe 45, 50 pounds, and it was a big male. That's probably about as big as they get in Pennsylvania. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the upper range is definitely the 45 to 50 pound range. Typically you're not going to see anything too much larger than that. Something that's in the 60 pound range is quite out of the ordinary. Definitely very rare.
You know, it's funny. This article also mentions the largest coyote record in the United States. It's recorded at 75 pounds. That would be one big freaking animal.
Oh my God. It had to be more wolf than coyote at that point. Like definitely a coy wolf. What state did it say that was killed in? Did it say?
It said Alaska necessarily. Yeah. So I can imagine them being a little bigger than what we have over here.
Right. Yeah. Because I think I read here, it said that the average life expectancy of a coyote in Pennsylvania is around 6 to 8 years because of all the, hunting one, because when it's rifle season, everyone shoots coyotes.
Oh, my bad. I actually misspoke. This is Baldwin County, Alabama. It's hard to tell sometimes with the abbreviations.
Oh yeah. The abbreviations. Yeah. No.
So this is Alabama. That's pretty good still.
Yeah,
he says it's about 30, usually on average in lower Alabama, they don't weigh more than 30 pounds. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty impressive to see a 60-pound coyote.
Yeah, I mean, even in Pennsylvania, 60 pounds would be ridiculous. And I imagine they're even smaller in Alabama. But yeah, like 6 to 8 years is the life expectancy of a Pennsylvania coyote. But if they're in captivity, they can live twice as long as that, just because of all the elements are different. They don't really have to worry about the worms and all these other things that can happen to them. So around 6 to 8 years here, but they can actually live twice as long. It was probably a really old coyote. That's the reason they got that big.
Right. And like I mentioned in the segue, essentially we have noticed that people are more interested in hunting coyotes. Just from our event at Laurel High School last year, we noticed that was our biggest class where people really wanted to see and
explain to them what we did.
What's that?
You can explain to them what we did.
Yeah. So we basically taught them how we use our red lights and some techniques to go against the wind and everything. I wasn't paying attention too much because I was filming.
Nolan's not
recording.
We have in Heirs the Outdoors, we do have a predator team of, and we have people all across the state. Jim being the furthest most east, he's like basically you can see New Jersey from his house, literally. But yeah, we have people all across the state that hunt predators, mostly fox and coyotes. So what we did was we out in Laurel High School in Pennsylvania, we had a classroom, and we told everyone just we only use red lights in Pennsylvania. A lot of people out west, they can use the green lights and the white lights. But we basically taught them the only red lights here are the only ones we can really use, or else it kind of spooks the animal. Mm-hmm. And just a whole bunch of different tips on how to actually hunt coyotes at night. Most people hunt them at night that are successful because that's when these predators move. But what we're trying to do is what I started doing this year I know, well, 2 years ago, I killed a coyote in the daytime. I think it's the only successful Pennsylvania coyote daytime hunt on YouTube. And that's why it's done so well, is because nobody really, aside from like rifle season, kills these animals. Like most people, they don't go out in the daytime and kill coyotes when they're trying to hunt coyotes. If they do, they don't put it on, they don't record any of their hunts. So what we tried to do is, I went out and we just banged on a hand rabbit call, no Fox Pro or anything like that, no electronic calls. And we ended up getting one for the first time. We really went out and tried it. And then over the past couple of years through, Brendan Ryle and even Jim Kelly, he joined us last year, started hunting at night, had a lot of opportunities and killed a couple of them, but like not a whole lot as far as any by no means am I an expert in this, but I wanted to kind of see like how hard is it to actually, like the lay person, like the normal person, how hard is it for that person to go out and kill a coyote in the daytime and in the nighttime. So I started a video series today of me hunting in the daytime. I'm going to try to get out like maybe once every week in the daytime and the nighttime to try to see how long it actually takes, like a normal person with a normal amount of properties using a Fox Pro and like a rifle, how long it takes to actually kill a coyote. So we're going to talk about their biology and basically tips and strategies. Jim Kelly is going to be big on that because he knows a lot about it. He's been predator hunting a lot longer than I have. So that's what we're going to start on now.
Right. And I feel the reason why, a big reason why people showed up to that class in general from Laurel, excuse me, is because people are very cautious with coyotes, I should say, because they love to kill livestock. They get after those small animals and domesticated animals in general. So, Jim, would you agree that necessarily they do pose a danger to livestock and pets and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a multitude of different reasons why, but I mean, I hunt numerous farms that range from chickens to sheep to all different sorts of animals. And I think the common denominator is usually always the farmers. The first thing that when you ask them, if you could help them with some predator hunting, and they mention that they have a specific type of animal that's usually susceptible to, whether it be fox or coyote for that matter. They're immediately very excited about you getting in there and trying to get rid of them because they're definitely definitely a known issue. I wouldn't say that the pet thing is as popular, obviously, but it's definitely still a problem. I definitely would say that there's cases where it happens, and and people get nervous about that sort of thing. It's not the type of animal you'd want roaming around your backyard when you have a small dog outside or something like that, because they very easily could, and even a fox for that matter. I mean, depending on the size of the dog or the size of the fox. I mean, there's some dogs as small as a few pounds. So I've seen some interesting videos over the years that I've been involved in predator hunting about different animal attacks and things of that nature. And I think predator attacks really they have there's a lot of different factors to them, but one of the biggest things is the drive in the animal at the time. I mean, if it's an animal that's extremely hungry or whatever reason they have to want to attack, that it can happen and it will happen.
Right now, Jim, I have a question. So I've read where you can kill 75% of a coyote population, and then the next year, because the females have 5 to 7 pups per year, that they can come out back next year and be on par or even larger than the recent population, even if you kill 75% of them, which almost never happens. Now, and I know that the coyote kind of like in the eastern part of Pennsylvania, there's a lot more fox, or at least used to be, and then the western part is when it starts to get more coyote than fox. Now, do you think that the coyotes would you classify them as more of an invasive species?
An invasive species? Coyotes are definitely an animal of opportunity. I find it very common that they seek out an area that's advantageous to them. And if for some reason that area either becomes less like if they feel as though there's a threat in that area, or it gets a lot of pressure in that area, or if the food source starts to dry up a little bit, they'll move. They're I've hunted a lot of places that could produce very well for a few years, and then all of a sudden, the next year you go and something changes. Maybe there's different people in the area. Maybe there's different things going on in that area. And all of a sudden you don't see the number of predators that you saw the year previous, and you may hunt down the road a few miles, and all of a sudden you're seeing coyotes where you wouldn't have seen them before. So they're definitely opportunistic. I'm sure, I think some of the what you wanted to talk about in the podcast too was transient versus resident coyotes, and I think that kind of plays into that whole scene or scenario there, because depending if they have that good food source and a very comfortable environment, they will become more of a resident type coyote versus the transient coyote, where you may have one on your trail camera and then never see one again for a year. They're just passing through. They're kind of cutting through that property and moving on, versus one you may see a few times a week on a regular basis pass through in the exact same area. Maybe not necessarily the exact same time, but on a regular basis, let's call it. That's more of a resident coyote. He's got a good reason to be there. Like I said, it's got good food source. It's got good, an area it's for them to stay secluded. Whatever the reason is, they have a reason for it.
My main thing is the reason that I hunt them is because they've done studies where they'll set up like a trail camera at a den, and they say that they did one. I think PAGC did one in 27 of the 28 days that they had the camera on there. A pack of 3 or 4 coyotes brought back a deer every single day, and that's the only thing. That's the only stuff that they brought back. And we know that turkey. They call the baby turkeys are called poults. The poult mortality rate is extremely high because of coyotes and foxes. And obviously they kill a bunch of deer. So that's the main reason I hunt them, because I love hunting deer and turkeys. So coyotes, obviously keeping the predator, they call it predator control for a reason. That's the main reason I hunt them. So that's basically why we kind of hunt them. Now, I wanted to talk to you about, the difference between hunting coyotes at night and then hunting coyotes in the daytime. Like what strategies are different and what kind of things that you basically need to get out there and have a successful hunt. So I thought you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So obviously there's a big difference between hunting during the day and hunting at night. I would say as a whole, I think most Pennsylvania residents would agree that the people that typically predator hunt during the evening or at nighttime, with lights. You touched a little bit before about the fact that we use red lights. It's just, obviously that's a personal preference, that a lot of people feel as though the red lights work better. I've heard, other people say that they will use a white light or a green light. My personal preference is red. It's what I was taught with, and it's what I typically have success with. I've tried the other colors a little bit, and did not have nearly as much luck or the same response.
Yeah.
So
did you see them and they just ran away, or did you just didn't see them at all?
I would say a little bit of both. They're definitely a lot more cautious, I guess would be the best word to use. They, if you did see them, and I'm sure there were instances where they may have saw that light and they didn't like it at all. But you got to remember that those colors to a predator are going to appear brighter. They're a lot more intense of a color. So
yeah, I have to agree with that sentiment, because when we go out, I haven't been coyote hunting in maybe a few months or over a year. It's been a while, but every time we used red lights, you see a pair of eyes, and you can see it very crystal clear. Yeah, hundreds of yards away. And I feel like it is definitely more successful than the green lights. I think we used the green lights very temporarily one time, and we just didn't see anything during that. I did use it once, and I saw one, and I never saw the eyes again. So I think it just like Jim said, it's a little bit brighter, and they usually turn tail and get out of there because they know something's up. Red light, for some reason, that doesn't happen. Exactly.
Yeah. So as far as the differences, I mean, the night hunting, obviously with red lights, is more popular. But you can hunt during the day. I do like hunting during the day, actually. I don't do it nearly as much. I think, unfortunately, just the way that a lot of the topography in Pennsylvania is laid out, I think it doesn't always necessarily allow for.
Yeah, because they like camouflage right into the foliage a little bit. Brian, I think he got lucky on his coyote kill. I keep saying coyote. I know you're hating that right now.
Yeah, just coyote class. Most people say coyote. It's coyote.
I last March when Brian got his kill, I was surprised because it was just blending so well with the trees, and having that extra advantage with the red lights, you can at least see their eyes and have a keener focus on it. But when they blend in and camouflage into the wild, into the wild like that, it definitely seems like more of a challenge.
When I shot it, you can watch the video if you want. We have it on our YouTube channel. It was a lot of snow on the ground, so you should be able to see it really easy. But it blended in so well, and I was self filming. We had it from far away. But I just, for some reason, I've shot them at night. For some reason, to me, just hunting them in the daytime and seeing a coyote in the daytime, particularly because it's more challenging to get them to commit in the daytime, it's just so much cooler. And I think the difference between hunting them at night, where we primarily hunt them in fields, I've noticed the coyotes that I have had opportunities to at in the daytime, I hunt in power lines where there's lots of shrubs and there's like open woods that they'll actually come out into the, kind of like a wooded area. And that's when you got to get them. You're not going to get a coyote, especially in Pennsylvania, to come out in the field really, especially in the daytime. You can watch John Collins or something like that in Kentucky, where it's a lot easier, and they'll like 3 of them will come running out into a field in broad daylight. That doesn't happen here in Pennsylvania. It's actually, Pennsylvania is one of the hardest states to kill a coyote.
Absolutely. And I can tell for sure, you go out west, you see videos on YouTube everywhere where people will just be out for 2 minutes. They'll see like a whole pack of coyotes, or gosh dang it, coyotes.
It's all good. Yeah, they'll have the Fox Pro cranked up all the highest as it can be, and in noon, and like a pack of coyotes will run in. See, I said it like you did now.
Yeah, but no, you see, Jim, he told us not to say it, and now we keep saying it.
Yeah, I've never said coyote in my life. It just sounds so weird, but
you catch that coyote illness, and then you're done.
I think it's just a PA accent.
It's interesting. It's an interesting concept, because I have called open fields a handful of times in the years that I've been doing it, and I've had it successful. I would say about I can think of 2 times right off the top of my head. I want to say a third time possibly. Coincidentally, they all typically were right around the same time of year. It was around the mating season.
Yeah, right now is the mating season. I was
using female whimpers or female howls or things of that nature. And I think that similar to a deer, the drive of a male animal is much stronger during that mating season time, and I think that they will be have more of a tendency to slip up or do something a little bit more risky that they wouldn't normally do other times of the year. And I think that's why you would see them out in the open like that, because 99% of the time, if I'm going to day hunt, I usually day hunt in the woods. They're a lot less. They're already a leery animal to begin with, let alone during the day. So at least if they have that coverage where they can, jut between bushes or scrub brush or any of those sorts of different things that they can kind of run.
They feel more safe.
Ditches, and they can run the backs of small knolls and things. Anything they can do to kind of hide themselves as they approach their target. Whether you're using prey distress or whether you're using vocalizations, that they can be cautious about doing that, because if they don't have that coverage, I think that they really don't feel comfortable doing it, like that during the day. At nighttime, you'll see them much more often, just come running across the field, full force running across the field.
Oh, definitely. That's like the only time that I've ever seen a coyote at night. Is like they get on the field edge, and then you finally get them to commit. And so I agree with you there. Definitely how you hunt them in the daytime is wooded areas, shrubbery, and we already talked about that.
You mentioned You had a story like a few weeks ago where you were out by yourself and wasn't a coyote approaching you, and you were
I got
charged.
I got charged by a coyote. Because I was hunting him at night. I heard him hollering off a couple hundred yards away. Wind was perfect. It was downhill. And then the wind switched up completely. And it was like house was less than 40 yards behind me. And there was a big hump. And so the wind switched on me. I thought they were coming in. And then I had my tripod set up. And then I hear something barreling towards me. My lights are the other way. I spun around. This coyote was coming over. Came over the hill less than 20 yards. I spun my light around. Couldn't get a shot off because the house was there. But I got charged by one in the nighttime.
Oh, man. I would have been scared.
Yeah, I didn't have my revolver on me, or else I probably could have got it. But it was a scary feeling, especially when you're by yourself. So
and that fear also goes to just people out in residential communities. You'll see on the news recently, there was an attack in California, Chula Vista. I think that's how you pronounce it. This coyote actually came out and attacked one of a resident's dog, a lost puppy, and an older dog. And they had to repair some of the damage that was made by it to their fence. And they're just like very ruthless creatures.
There are videos of them carrying away people's cats and stuff online. Like, they're no joke.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I've seen that video of the cat, and it's disturbing, man. I just feel that people think like these antis. I always bring up the antis. I love it, but they always the premise that they make is, they're just like any other animal. We're invading their land and all this stuff. I'm like, well, they are a problem, and as long as they are attacking your animals, wildlife,
livestock, like we already have huge issues with poult survival rates. Like I already mentioned, there is value in controlling the population.
Absolutely.
But and if you want to control the population, I think, Jim, we were talking about, a lot of people don't have these expensive lights to go out and hunt them at night. And would you agree that hunting them in the mating season, which actually runs from now up to, like, I would say mid-March, would you say it's the best time to go out and try to kill a coyote in the daytime in Pennsylvania?
There's a couple different times that are pretty good. That's definitely one of them. Mating season is definitely good for getting a good response out of them. The average person may not have, the fancy gear like you're talking about. They may have a light that's not, the dimmer's not adjustable. It may not be very bright, or they may be using a hand call, and they're new to hunting in general for predators. So that if they don't have things like that and they're trying to look for opportunity, it's definitely a good time. We have really good results too, also in late summer. You get a lot of response. Unfortunately, it's not the greatest time of year, because it's so warm outside. And you're hunting at night and it's 70 degrees out, and it makes for a nice sweaty night. But it does bring in some good hunting. At least for coyotes. I mean, here in Pennsylvania, we obviously have a specific season for the rest of our predators, but the coyotes being open year round, you can hunt them all summer long if you choose so. But it's definitely there's definitely times of the year that are more advantageous for newer hunters, or people that don't have the as good of equipment. I mean, just in general, regardless of whether you have good equipment or not, or whether you're a seasoned hunter, seasoned predator hunter. In my opinion, I think that the coyotes are definitely probably in the top, if not the top, hardest animal to hunt in the state. There's some other animals that we're not able to hunt. Like we have animals like fisher and stuff, which there's not a lot of numbers of. And bobcat, which there's not a lot of numbers of. Bobcat, we have a very short season, so there's a very limited time frame to hunt. Fisher, you're not allowed to hunt at all. You can only trap them, so you're limited there. But with the exception of those two, most people can hunt their entire life, and if they're not a predator hunter specifically, and they're just a deer hunter, they may only see a few coyotes their entire life. Because they're not out hunting at night, and they may just have one stroll past during their deer stand in the middle of the deer hunt, or in turkey season, trying to call in a turkey or something like that.
Question, Jim.
It's not exactly. I mean, they're elusive, and they're they survive for a reason because of that instinct that drives them to be very elusive.
Right. And I have a question for you. So the people you're just talking about, it's kind of what the purpose of this podcast and the video that video series that I just started today.
Sure.
3 tips for people who only seen them sometimes during deer season and turkey season. 3 tips that you would tell a normal hunter who's never predator hunted before, what they need to know to actually have a higher success rate at killing a Pennsylvania coyote.
Interesting. 3 concepts. Well, I'll start with the number one. Number one is wind. Wind is your enemy, and also your best friend, depending on how you look at it. You have to play the wind to your advantage. If that coyote even so much as catches a slightest, tiniest whiff of you, he's gone. They have an extremely good sense of smell, and something that you're not going to ever you're never going to elude. It doesn't matter how good your scent control is, how good you wash your clothes, what you bathe yourself in. I tell all guys in the beginning when I used to try to be so cautious of what I was wearing and things like that. I mean, I wouldn't say I spray myself down in Ralph Lauren and go out and have no problem, but at the same time, I don't really worry a whole lot about what I'm wearing when I'm going out.
Yeah, I think, Jim, I think I read somewhere that canines in general, I don't know if this is an accurate number, but they have 1,000 times more powerful scent of way of smelling things than humans do. So obviously the wind can be a very extreme disadvantage to us. So we do want to be very mindful of that.
Could you explain to the listeners how to play the wind to your advantage?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Could you explain to the people listening how to play the wind as a predator hunter so you can actually have a successful hunt?
Sure. I mean, you can get really deep into the concept, but to keep it basic. I mean, obviously, when you're calling in a predator, depending on what you're using, whether it be prey distress or whether it be vocalizations, you need to make sure that when that animal is approaching the caller or yourself, that you're not putting them or you want to set yourself up in a way that when they approach, that your wind is not going towards them so that they're going to smell you. There's various different winds that you can hunt. Some people have personal preferences, whether you want to hunt wind in your face, whether you want to hunt a crosswind. All these things you can research online and look at the different ways. They'll show you basically a layout of a field, for example, and how you can set yourself up so that you're in a good position to kind of hunt the area. But basically, like you said, the concept is that you want to set yourself in a manner that you're not being the animal's not smelling you, because like I said, once they smell you, they're gone.
Yeah.
So that's definitely number one for me.
All right, go on with number 2 then.
Yeah, we got about 2 minutes left, so bang out the last 2, and then we're gonna wrap this up.
Okay. Besides scent, definitely what kind of call you're using, I think has a big effect on things. How you're calling them.
Yeah, how you're calling would be important, I can imagine, as well.
Yeah, definitely how you're calling. Like I said, you can do a lot of research, but there's certain things that you need to do certain times of the year. And how you call and the sequence in which you call, those all play a big factor. I think calling is very important. For the purposes of time, obviously, I'll try to keep it short and sweet. But the third one I think that's very important too is the at least for night hunting, because I think it's probably what we're kind of focusing on here. The lighting is very important. A lot of people tend to make a lot of mistakes. I see when they start out predator hunting, and you need to do your homework when you're starting out predator hunting with your lighting, because there's a lot of things that you could do that will easily spook an animal.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be, for example, casting a shadow, or whether it be spotlighting yourself, or whether it be having your lights too bright. There's so many different factors and things that you can make mistakes on, and you can blow a set. And you might go out and get discouraged because you'll go out multiple times and you'll never see anything. But then if you were to, for example, go out with a professional, that would show you a lot of the mistakes you were making, you'd see your success rate go up drastically. So the way you're using your lighting and the type of lighting you're using, those are all very, very important things to keep conscious of.
Right. I think one one tip not to do too is what this director of the county of San Diego Department of Animal Services. It goes back to that story I was talking about with the lost puppy and the old dog being attacked. But he says humans should learn to coexist with coyotes. And I'm like, that's the most Californian thing I've ever heard. So let's he says, if you see one, just get an air horn and just use the air horn to scare it away. I'm like, that's not solving the problem.
Yeah,
that's just delaying it.
Yeah, it's just like
another time.
Like Jim, you're telling me the bear issue in New Jersey, how like they outlawed bear hunting in New Jersey, and now it's so bad that they brought back an archery season, and then there's still a lot of antis that protest. I want to see video of that next year from you, buddy.
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
Yeah, just come like if there are predators, it is important to do predator control. But anyways, if you want to learn more about coyote hunting in Pennsylvania, you can either just look up multiple sources online, or we have about a 2-hour video of 2 separate classes that we taught in Laurel High School with our predator expert Brendan Ryle. He gives a pretty good explanation, probably about, let's say, 30 to 40 minutes each, about how to hunt coyotes in Pennsylvania. So if you want to do that, if you want us to make a more in-depth video that's shorter, let us know in the comments, and then we will go ahead and do that within the next year. So get back to us.
Absolutely. And also, guys, comment below and tell us what your advantages are, some tips and tricks that you have that we may have not been able to cover in this segment, whether you use red lights, whether you use green lights, something that just contributes to the page. But regardless, make sure you like the content. If you enjoyed our discussion on this today, subscribe to Heirs to Outdoors below, and check out our social media on Facebook and Instagram, and check out our news there. But with that being said, guys, do you have anything else you want to add to this discussion before we head out?
No, sir.
All right. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day. This is Heirs Podcast, episode 6. Y'all have a good rest of your day.